It may seem like only a month or so since I did a wardrobe tour. However, that was in the midst of winter. And if there's one thing that really kind of gets me thinking about my minimalist wardrobe, it's the changing of the seasons. In the living in a 4-season climate and also travelling quite a bit makes it very, 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 very difficult to have an extreme minimalist wardrobe. I would consider this to be an extreme minimalist wardrobe in that it is under 35 clothing pieces. I would also consider it to be a sustainable wardrobe, and I'm going to talk about why in this week's video, because as I perhaps discussed in last week's video regarding sustainability, that can mean something a little bit different to all of us, in that I think that there is this huge go-to in minimalism that we always think of linen, cotton, plant-based fibres as being the most sustainable. Now they are, in the terms of them being biodegradable, that if we were to just fall down in the middle of the forest with this t-shirt on, it would biodegrade much quicker than an item like that. However, I think what is forgotten a lot in minimalist circles is not all of us live in a warm climate that is also dry and not humid, and therefore what becomes the most sustainable kind of relies on how we take care of our clothes and in what environment we live in. And I'm going to discuss that today, and that's why I have to put the caveat on this for anybody watching in a lovely warm dry climate where they can just wear their linen 12 months of the year and wash it by hand or wash it on cold and leave it to air dry. If you live in a cold environment and there's not much space because you live in a sort of 30 metres squared home to air dry things and you have no garden, often you have no choice other than to use a dryer, or as we do now, we compromise and partially use our environmentally friendly dryer, and then for the remaining time leave it to air dry. As those of you who are regulars here will know, this is not how I normally keep my wardrobe. It's in a drawer, one drawer under my bed. For today's video I have it out on my air dryer rail. So let's get discussing why I consider my wardrobe to also be sustainable given the climate that I live in, and how I keep it being sustainable, as I know it ruffled a few feathers last week when I kind of suggested that sometimes we have to think about what's sustainable and what's not. For instance, one of the big things I mentioned was wool versus acrylic. Wool definitely, without a doubt, is the most environmentally friendly in terms of that it is biodegradable. It's a natural fibre. It's not going to take 1,000 years to biodegrade if we drop down dead in the middle of the forest. However, in a cold climate such as this, which is also damp, drying a wool jumper in this home would just not be practical. If I were to leave it to air dry on here, it would literally take 2 weeks, by which time it would smell of foist. And I know the idea is that we don't wash it too often, but if you're also living in a very cold, damp climate, chances are it does get muddy or messy or dirty as well, and it does need washing sometimes. So those kind of things are by the by, and we really have to think about them, because I wouldn't want to be walking around in a smelly, foisty jumper. So I have to wear something that I can wash and that will dry quickly, that I don't have to have the dryer on for 6 hours to dry either, and that will potentially air dry quicker. Anybody who is sort of a camping enthusiast, an outdoors person, there's a reason why people wear fleeces, and that is because they are moisture wicking. They kind of stop us from sweating but also dry quickly, and that is ideal for if you are living in a damp moisture climate, and that is definitely this. Hence why we have a dehumidifier in here, because there is a lot of condensation, and if we were to leave all our clothes constantly air drying, given that there's 2 of us living in this sort of 32 square metres apartment, there would be even more moisture in the air, and then we'd be creating an environment for ourselves that is just not healthy. The humidity would be sort of above 70%. Even with our dehumidifier, it is currently about 55 to 60%. So not the ideal situation. That all being said, now you can see why I'm about to show you what I'm about to show you. Let's consider all things sustainability, and let me pick these things up off the floor. I have a new couple of things because recently I decided I wanted to start dressing a bit smarter, but I also wanted to actually finally find out what types of jumpers and sweaters work for me. I did previously have my fleeces. I still like them for obvious reasons that I've just said. They dry very quickly, but they're not always the smartest. So I wanted to look at what alternatives I could wear that weren't fleeces yet were smart and that would dry quickly. But I'm going to show you my whole wardrobe while we're at it. So, as you can see, I've kind of colour organised the things today rather than put them in sort of tank tops, t-shirts, tops, long sleeve tops. But roughly, it is about 3 of each for each category of things. So, let's start with the black. I always have my black cotton tank top. I love to have basics because I think that we can pair them easy with different things and they go well from season to season, whether that's summer, I say spring, summer, autumn, winter. We can layer them in the autumn and winter for extra layers, but in the summer they also do as a little tank top on its own. I do have several of them in different colours, as you're about to see. They are cotton. 80–90% of my wardrobe is cotton and linen, but it's not always practical for a cold, wet climate. I have my black linen trousers, which I absolutely love because they're multifunctional. You can wear them in the house to relax in, you can dress them up with a blazer to go out in, or they're fine and quite cool for travelling and on a summer day. They're perfect. However, in the winter, they're just a little bit too cold. So I can layer them with leggings, which is something I actually don't like to do with dresses, as I've mentioned before. I don't like the feeling of having the leggings right under the dresses, which is why I'm not somebody who wears dresses in the winter. Then I have my black linen shirt. This is a great cover-up for on the beach if you're somebody who burns like me. It's very, very long. You can wear it different ways, style it different ways, tie it up, tie it down. Love it. I love cotton and linen. Now, although cotton and linen is sort of good for keeping cool in a warm climate, covering up from mosquitoes, what it's not great at is not wrinkling. It wrinkles a lot, and although we all know that we can hang it in the shower whenever we go on vacation and, you know, the steam will let some of the wrinkles drop out, it doesn't always. And it definitely doesn't when you first get there. Usually it needs at least 48 hours for that to happen. So lately, because I've been doing quite a bit of travelling over the past year and I intend to do much more, I have some go-to viscose pieces. Now, for anybody who doesn't know what viscose is, it is plant-based fibres. It's not natural in the same sense of cotton and linen, completely untreated and just threads. It has been treated, but it is essentially plant-based fibres. So I definitely, if I can, for a non-creasing garment, I push it to viscose. This is my little non-sleeve viscose black top. I love it. I've had this probably the longest in my entire wardrobe. For any of you who have been here from the beginning, from my first wardrobe tour that I did, I think it's even in that. That's 3 years ago, and I think I had it for at least a year before I started this channel. For those people last week that said good luck wearing sort of, you know, man-made fibres or fast fashion, that's what they said, fast fashion for longer than several wears. And I suggested that if we all wore things at least 80 times, it would make things more sustainable. Well, I have worn this well over 100 times, and it just goes to show that we can't always be generic about some elements of fast fashion. And this is what I meant by last week's video. That sometimes, I'm definitely not agreeing with fast fashion. I think it makes us all over-consume, and that's why in last week's video I said that really it starts with the buyer and how we think of the garment. That as long as we don't think of it as throwaway, that we're just going to get it and wear it 3 or 4 times, and we wear it to the end of its use, it becomes a little bit more sustainable. And that's why I don't mind sometimes buying things, say, off Vinted that I know have come from places like H&M, and they may even be viscose or acrylic or something, but if I know that I am absolutely going to wear it until it is dropping apart, and even then recycle it, it doesn't become as unsustainable. And this is a classic point of where I think if everybody got to know their fabrics and know what actually a good quality fabric feels like, it can last a long time. Now, also, we wouldn't think of viscose as being good quality, but there are even levels of quality within that type of fabric. For instance, we all know that cotton and linen is a better quality fabric, but of all the viscose varieties there are, if we get used to what the different types of fabric feel like, we soon learn what quality feels like. And because I have got used to that, that's why I was able to go into a shop, touch the fabric and think, actually that feels like it might actually last for quite a while. And it has. It's lasted me 4 years. I do at least wear it 30 times a year, if not more. So that's at least 120 wears so far, and I don't intend to get rid of it anytime soon, because I can literally leave it screwed up in a ball if I wanted to in my suitcase, and when I get there it drops out. And I think what a lot of people don't think about in sustainable fashion as well is people that are also travelling, they need it to dry quickly and they need it to not really be high maintenance or creasing. So we can work that into our wardrobe as well. It doesn't have to all be, you know, all cotton and linen, or the other way, all sort of acrylics and viscose, but we can do a little bit of both to be balanced about what we do. And for those people also that don't like the idea of, say, polyester and things being near their skin, you could wear the cotton tank top underneath, so that, you know, if you're worried about the microplastics and things touching your skin, you've got that as a layer underneath. I have a few new additions, as I mentioned, and this is one of them. You've yet to see me wearing this on camera, but I really like it. I got it off Vinted, second hand. Again, it is viscose, and in fact, I think it's partially viscose and partially acrylic, but I like it for the same reason as the other one. It does not crease for when I'm travelling, so I've got two tops when I first arrive somewhere that I could wear that are smart whilst I wait for all the linen creases to drop out and all the wrinkles to drop out of my other options. So I'm quite enjoying this, and you know, depending on the quality of the fabric, it does last for quite a while. There's certain fabrics that don't, and I might actually show you in this video as well how I tell the difference between knowing which ones are gonna last and which ones aren't, and it's to do with the finish on the fabric. So as I mentioned a few videos ago as well, I'm also starting to bring in more of the monochrome, and you're going to see that in this video because I've got it at the moment organised into the main colours that I wear, the black and white, the kind of natural grey, beige greyish, and the green. But I do occasionally have some other earthy tones, sort of like dusty pinks or terracotta, and occasionally a little bit of blue. I will show you that, but that's for like mainly my bottom half. They're just over there because I ran out of hangers, but I'll show you them in a second. So then we do have my linen, and I try where I can to get linen in this muslin cheesecloth material as well, which is purposefully made to look even wrinklier. Don't know if you can all see that, so that I don't have to worry about it being too wrinkly, because the wrinkles, the bane of my life. I never iron. I don't iron. My partner has a little mini iron, like a travel iron, that he uses for his shirts, but I don't iron. I either get things that don't need ironing or things that disguise the ironing. I don't want to spend my time ironing, and yeah, who wants to spend all the time ironing? Then we have the beige version of the black tank top that I just said. Cotton. I have another cotton t-shirt, and this is really, really thick cotton, so I sometimes find that in the summer these are actually a bit too warm, and these are the type of thing that when it's the really thick, really good quality cotton, but if it's very thick, this, if I were to leave it to air dry, it literally takes about 5 days to dry in our home because the condensation is a little bit of an issue, even with the heating on and the dehumidifier. So by which time it starts to smell, which is why we actually do put it in the dryer for a couple of hours, and then for the rest of the time we've started to leave it up here to air dry. And the reason we've been making that compromise is, I agree with, you know, what people say, that if you do constantly dry your outfits in the washer dryer, it definitely wears them out quicker. Ours, however, is not particularly bad for the environment because it actually wears them and uses the minimum amount of energy possible to be able to dry it. But however, it does still wear them out more than air drying them, but we just don't have that option in this small, damp loft apartment. Then another new little top. This again, partially viscous, partially acrylic, and it's got this lovely sort of mottled effect that I actually really like. I actually love minimalist style details that a top looks quite plain, but it is the structure that is different. For instance, a different neckline, a ruche or puff sleeve. I love little details like that. And this dries very quickly and is alarmingly warm. And obviously I can layer it under a tank top or vest if I want, with one of these Under Armour type tops, thermal tops, and then it is very warm. I have a green cotton vest slash tank top. The reason I keep saying vest slash tank top as well, guys, is because in the north of England we call this a vest, but I know that a lot of people have asked me what is a vest. They don't know what that is. It's a tank top to everybody else. I don't know why we call it that, we just do. Then I have these two thermal Under Armour tops. They're great because I can wear it just like this if I want, or in the winter wear it underneath something. Now these are, in fact, what are these made of? Because they're the only fabric I've ever got that's man-made that does not actually, it's 57% acrylic and 38% viscous. I'm somebody that actually can't wear polyester at all. If I wear polyester, I come out in a rash. So of all the man-made fibres, if it's sort of acrylic with a little bit of viscous at least, because that's perhaps a plant-based fibre, I don't know why, but I don't have a reaction to it. Same with bamboo and that type of thing. It seems to agree with my skin more, because they did describe this as, is it hypoallergenic? Hypoallergenic. So that's good for me, because otherwise I would have a rash all over my chest after I'd been wearing it. So if you're like me and you don't really want to wear plastics right near your skin, some of them, if they are viscous, might be okay for you. Maybe try a second-hand one or something so you're not forking out before knowing whether you're allergic. I have another green cotton t-shirt. I love the t-shirts that have just a tiny little thing on the front, and I don't mind having some kind of design on the back, not a slogan or branding, but just some kind of nice little message. I don't mind that little bit of interest to the back. And my latest jumper that you've probably seen me all wearing all last week, because I do wear them for about a week before washing them, because obviously they don't go right near your skin because you've got one of these layers on underneath. Now a lot of people thought this was 2 layers, but it is not. It is cleverly just sewn into there, and this, I think this is 100% acrylic. Let's have a look. 80% acrylic and 20% poly-made. Is poly-made the same as polyester? I'm not quite sure. I'll have to look up the difference there. But either way, because it's got that acrylic, not quite polyester, I think it has it feels like a slightly different finish. This definitely feels like wool, and for the most part I don't think people can even tell the difference. And also, if it comes with this slightly brushed finish on jumpers, that really helps sort of disguise bobbling at a later date. But I absolutely love this little detail. It makes it look that little bit smarter and adds that little bit of minimalist interest to an outfit without it being sort of overbearing. So they're all sort of my top halves. So I will show you the bottom halves that I didn't have really enough hangers for. Let me get them. These are my bottom halves, and as you can see, are you all noticing a little bit of a theme here? It's mainly all black and green with a tiny bit of beige and the odd other little bit Green leggings, these are cropped. I obviously use these to relax in, work out in. Again, sportswear often is not cotton. Sometimes it's partially cotton and partially acrylic. Which is this? Let's have a look. Because that is what makes it obviously elastic. It is 50% cotton, 50% viscose, these sort of yoga leggings, and they've got this lovely soft finish because I hate the sort of shiny finishes. And it's just really, really comfortable, relaxing, but I can also layer it under my linen trousers, as I mentioned. Just put that down there for now because there is no space for it up there. I have, where are they? I have a full length pair of black leggings, the exact same style and brand, the yoga style. I have 3 pairs of jeans, these sage green ones, these green paper bag ones, and my black ones. I always kind of like just a sort of slim fit or boyfriend cut. I just think that they're comfortable yet can be dressed up or dressed down. And obviously we all know that jeans are cotton, very, very thick cotton, so they do take a long time to dry. However, I do mostly air dry my jeans, but if there's just one garment that's air drying, I think that's one thing that you can get away with. And they don't seem to quite take as long as wool, as obviously we all know they are not as waterproof as wool, because when wool is fully soaked, it is basically like a wet sheep and it takes forever and it does smell a bit. So I don't mind having the odd pair of jeans lying around drying, but wool is not one of the things that I do. I live in my jeans in the UK. At one point I said I was going to try to get down to 1 pair. I did try that. I tried to live just in these for 30 days and I soon realised that it became very hard to wash and dry them in that time. And actually I would like to have 2 pairs, so I had these. But then after that I realised that I was missing having a black pair, and as we all know I've started to increase more black into my wardrobe. I wanted a black pair, so I've got 3 pairs of jeans, and I would actually say that these clothes behind you here and these 3 pairs of jeans are basically my UK wardrobe, because we don't really have a summer, and as you're about to now see sort of my summer and my travelling outfit, they really only get worn for special occasions, the 3 weeks of summer that we have, and travelling. But because I do travel a lot and I do occasionally go to events, I like to just keep some smarter things in my wardrobe as well. So let's put those jeans down there. The 1 pair of shorts that I have contemplated dyeing these black. Of course these are denim as well, but they're quite a thin denim, so they are okay to travel with and they do dry quite quickly. I'm contemplating dyeing them black. I'm undecided yet, but that's another thing that I do for sustainability. If I start to get bored of an outfit, I first of all think about how I can customise it. Do I want to dye it? Do I want to make it shorter? For instance, when one day my jeans wear out, the first thing that usually wears out for me is the knees, so I always cut them off and wear them a little bit for shorts as well. So that's that. Now let's talk about another thing, because I like to be as transparent as possible as well with these wardrobes and decluttering as a minimalist, blah blah blah. Sometimes I do put an outfit, an item, a piece of clothing to one side and it's in my maybe pile. And sometimes, just because of the amount of videos that I make and things, it's too difficult to just do one video where I say, oh by the way, I didn't declutter that, I decided to keep it. But there are instances where I sometimes do that. Very occasionally I say I'm going to put that in the maybe pile, I'm not sure yet, and then I don't always do a follow-up to say whether I did. This was one of the items where I put it to one side. I really believed I was going to declutter it because, look, 100% cotton, it's a long length gypsy dress. I just never found an occasion to wear it, and I'm going to tell you why. When I went away, it was long and black and just too warm to wear it whilst I was travelling. And then I thought to myself, well, I don't really wear dresses that much in the UK other than for a special occasion. But maybe this would be an appropriate dress to wear in the UK because it is black and it is long. So although I have not yet worn it, I am setting myself the goal this summer that I wear it, and I see how many times I wear it, and I take the bloody tag off and actually wear it. If I don't, I obviously have to get rid of it by the end of the summer. So that's one of those things that I put in the declutter pile. It's been in the declutter pile an enormous amount of time because it was winter, and this is the final test whether I wear it or not in the summer. But this actually is also 100% cotton. Hopefully I will wear this. So I have a dress as well. What else do I have? I have some other pieces that just sort of didn't fit on here as well, so let me get them. These are sort of my little coloured bits that don't really fit in with the rest of the stuff, because occasionally I do like to wear blue. I think blue does quite suit me with my blue eyes. And I have this lovely blue linen, again, sort of a frill top, because I like a little bit of simple interest to an outfit. I love wearing that when I travel or in the summer as a sort of miniature cover-up jacket. I have an additional little t-shirt that is cotton and goes with these paper bag jeans quite nicely. By the way guys, I do normally wear a belt with these jeans to also add another little bit of interest, but I need the belt taking in because I stupidly bought the wrong size belt. I tried it around my lower waist when I tried it and then realised that actually on high-waisted trousers it wasn't going to fit. So I'm still waiting to take my belt in. It's one of those tasks that I've keep meaning to do and I haven't done. But I really like this, but this is one of the things where I'm going to tell you where this is what you have to be mindful of. If you buy a top, and even though this is cotton, you really have to be careful about the quality, because even though this is cotton, I don't know if you can all see, but it has started to bobble and pill already, and I've actually only worn that about 5 times and it's already started to do it, which just goes to show that it doesn't always mean that cotton doesn't pill. It's really always about the quality, regardless of whether it's cotton or linen or acrylic or viscose, whatever the fabric, it's really about the quality. So now what I've started to do is look at the fabric up close, and if it already has what they call in a brushed cotton look, although it looks lovely and soft, if it's already brushed, it means it's already partially worn out, and it is not going to last that long. It is not going to last that long. I don't know how easy that is picking that up on camera, but yeah, I will probably be lucky to get another 5 wears out of that before it looks... Can you all see it there? Before it looks just a mess and I won't want to wear it. So that will be probably having to be decluttered quite soon, or just kept as pyjamas or an underlayer. Oh, while we're on the subject of that, you all may be wondering where my hoodies are. I have retired them. The hoodies have been retired to the pyjama section. I do not want to wear them out of the house anymore, so you may very well see me wearing them in a future video, which may mean that I'm having a sort of lounging at home day. I do not want to wear them out of the house anymore. I'm making an effort to dress a little bit smarter, always show the best version of yourself to the world. It's, you know, it's okay to relax if you want to, and it's okay to go out comfortably if you want. This is just a personal decision that I am making in a way to sort of honour my grandma. It's something that she always believed, that you should be smart enough that if you saw your neighbours, you wouldn't want to run and hide behind the nearest bush. That is the version of yourself to present to the world, she believed, in that then that you always feel sort of presentable. You don't have to be glammed up to the nines, perhaps not so scruffy that you would want to hide behind the bush. And when I go out in my hoodie with my sort of fleece over the top, and if I even spread that down to going out in my sweats, I want to hide behind the bush. I don't feel tidy. Even though it may be fashionable, I just personally don't feel smart. It's just my personal opinion. So they have been retired as pyjamas. So this is what I'm discussing today, is my actual wardrobe clothing items. Not my underwear, not my pyjamas, and not my shoes or my jackets. So I believe that is everything except for... So one last thing I believe. I don't think I've missed anything else off here. Or have I? Oh, I have. I tell a lie. I'll tell you all about that in a minute. I recently got this little cardigan and I was so happy when I found it because I used to actually have one a little bit like it. I decluttered it because I absolutely wore it out and it was really bobbled and it looked a mess, and I was so happy when I found one that looked practically the same. And this is another style that I really like. I really like a cropped cardigan because, as I have mentioned before, I actually have quite long legs, but the ratio of body to leg sometimes, if I'm not careful, looks a bit disproportionate, and sometimes that then makes jumpers sit at a weird length around my waist, which can tend to make me look a little bit boxy. So what I like is if I can get a cropped jumper that sits just above my waist, especially if you're wearing sort of high-waisted trousers, and it finishes just in line with the high waist. That's something that I really like. And I also like big buttons for another dynamic to the outfit. And this has a nice sort of chenille look as well. So what have I not shown you all today? I have put my travel clothes away in a suitcase, but it is not many items. It is literally 4 dresses, 2 pairs of culottes and a bikini, because they just do not get worn in the UK, and I've been honest about that because some of the dresses are literally sort of thigh length. It's not warm enough for me to wear thigh length in the north of England. It's just not. I'm a very, very cold person. I see some very brave people in the north of England wearing much less, but yes, I am a cold person and I do not feel warm enough to wear those outfits until it's at least 30 degrees Celsius, which we maybe only get about 3 days a year in the UK. So what is the point in me having them out here, having them in my drawer, taking up space, if they only get worn when I'm travelling? And the culottes technically could be worn here, but I feel like they're just sort of that beachy style vibe that is better for when you're travelling. So they are away, guys, but this is everything that I own as an extreme minimalist or a minimalist, whichever terminology you prefer. As I've said many times before, the reason I call myself an extreme minimalist is because I have in total 100 personal possessions. I'll do that video for you all soon, this year's annual everything I own video, which will include my jackets and coats, my shoes, my personal care items, bags. Even my wardrobe though for clothing is under 35 items. This is why I consider my wardrobe to be sustainable, because it's all things considered. It's not just whether things has plastics in it that are non-biodegradable. I think people often forget about the processing and how often we have to replace things and the quality of the materials, how long it will last. For instance, I've got this blue t-shirt that, even though it is fully 100% cotton, it will probably have only done me for 10 wears, which means if every 10 wears I have to keep replacing this t-shirt, even though it's 100% cotton, it doesn't become more sustainable than this viscose one that has lasted me so far 120 wears and is going to continue to last me for quite a long time further. I'm not saying that's always the case. There's often circumstances where the cotton has better longevity. It's usually about high quality rather than the actual fabric it's made of, which I think sometimes we get mistaken with meaning better quality also means cotton and linen. It doesn't always necessarily mean that. So which is the highest quality regardless of the fabric, and which are we going to wear the longest, keep the longest, and not have to constantly buy and over consume, if we also consider that that has to go through a process every time, and every time taken to the outlets to be sold and shipped, and all those carbon emissions involved in creating that t-shirt every 10 wears, it actually becomes less sustainable than this item. And I think that's a point that sort of needs to be made in minimalism as well. Also, a couple of little things since we're discussing wardrobe. How do we make a minimalist wardrobe also sometimes feel dressed up with accessories? Obviously, I have my little earrings. I only have a couple of pairs of earrings, but they really add a difference. When my belt's been taken in, I wear a belt, and that can really make a difference. Even how we sort of style our hair as well, that can make a difference. So I hope you've all enjoyed this sort of lengthy wardrobe tour on sustainability, and it really is my full wardrobe, everything I own for all 4 seasons, and there are just 6 items missing, 4 dresses and 2 culottes that I only wear when it is over 30 degrees Celsius. I hope you all enjoyed this video. See you all later. Bye!